Good morning, friends. I want to extend a warm welcome to you today. Everyone is welcome here. This community is a safe place where we support each other in the sacred task of becoming. Our goal is to live our greatest possible lives and participate in society with love, compassion, and justice. In this congregation, we have faith in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, believe we are part of the interdependent web of existence, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. Everyone is welcome here, regardless of your politics, criminal record, status as a migrant, religious proclivities, gender identity, who you love, or if you are unsure of any or all of the above categories. You are welcome here. Let's proceed in the service to Glen Smith, who will answer 3 questions this congregation has asked about the Endowment Committee.
Unmute.
There we go.
2 weeks ago, the Buff Board met with the Endowment Committee and asked us to speak with the congregation regarding the endowment requests from the annual meeting. I'm Glen Smith, chairman of the committee. Our other members are Julie Williams and Dennis Higdon. I pasted each of our names and email addresses in the chat. I'm going to let you know about the charter of our committee, what we do, and then talk about the endowment requests from the annual meeting. The Endowment Committee's mandates are, first, assure the long-range financial future of the fellowship. We are guardians of the future. Second, help the fellowship manage and survive financial emergencies. And third, fund capital needs and special projects that further Buff's missions. The congregation's, endowment funds are invested in the UU Common Endowment Fund, known as UUCEF. We have 2 accounts with different requirements, but both earn dividends based on the number of shares we hold. The more shares we hold, the greater our income. In the prior 12 months, $6,100 of Buff's budget have come from the endowment fund. The 2020 projected budget includes $6,500, or 12%, from endowment income. This amount does not include the 3 additional endowment requests. As guardians of the future, we must balance the needs of the current congregation to those of the future congregations. Any funds we withdraw now reduce funds available to the future congregation. We will not let Buff fail, but we also must ensure that the future Buff has the resources to ensure that they can survive any future emergencies. Our options on the requests, on the endowment requests, as presented, are to either say yes, as is, or no, as is. We cannot make any conditions or make any changes. With that in mind, we'll look at the 3 requests. For the 3 requests from the annual meeting. First one, $10,000 for HVAC repair or replacement. Our answer is no, as written. The board clarified in our recent meeting that the funds would remain in the endowment fund until needed, and only the requirement amount up to $10,000 would be withdrawn. The endowment committee will vote yes when this request is written so that it is unambiguously specified that the request and includes that this is the request, and that it includes details on how to determine when a replacement or repair is necessary. That is, if Glen Smith, me, if I say a repair is necessary, that isn't enough. If an HVAC professional says it's enough, then it is. To be clear, if the HVAC system fails, it will be taken care of. Second request, $2,500 for asphalt repaving. Our answer is no. Someone suggested during the meeting that repairing the hole in the parking lot should be much less than $2,500. The decision at the annual meeting was that a committee would be formed to investigate further. Endowment will revisit this request when we have the results from that committee. The third request was $1,750 for AV equipment. Our answer is no, as written. We believe that we must wait until we know when the congregation will meet in person to purchase the equipment. Invested endowment funds will earn dividends, versus AV equipment burning warranty and growing outdated while it sits in our unused building. Dennis will speak more about the AV equipment request next week. In addition to every dollar we take from our fund, every additional dollar we take from our funds now reduces our future income forever. For each of these three requests, we're not saying now, but we are saying not right now. I'm sure many of you have questions, but I don't want to stretch the service out. So please send your questions to any or all of the members of the Endowment Committee. I've pasted our names and addresses in the chat, and they will also be in the Buff directory. Write to any or all of us. Let us know your questions. And if there are questions that are asked frequently, then we will put them together and try to get them put into a future Buff announce. Thank you. Thanks, Jim. I'm finished.
Thank you, Glenn. Yes, and thank you, Julie and Dennis. I know this is hard work and deliberative, and there's pressures on both sides of these situations. So thank you very much for taking the time to work these out. And Dennis, we'll see you next week after announcements.
How's this for a strange idea? A day off from work in honor of work itself. Actually, that is what Labor Day, celebrated in the United States and Canada on the first Monday of every September, is all about. The first American Labor Day was celebrated in New York City on September 5, 1882, as thousands of workers and their families came to Union Square for a day in the park. It was not a national holiday, but had been organized by a union to honor workers and their hard efforts with a rare day of rest, halfway between July 4th and Thanksgiving. There were picnics and a parade, but there were also protests. The workers had gathered not just to rest and celebrate, but to demand fair wages, the end of child labor, and the right to organize into unions. During the period known as the Industrial Revolution, many jobs were difficult, dirty, and dangerous. People worked for 12 hours, 6 days a week, without fringe benefits such as vacations, health care, and pensions. And if you were young, chances are you were doing manual labor instead of your ABCs and fractions. Children as young as 10 worked in some of the most hazardous places like coal mines or factories filled with boiling vats or dangerous machines. Trying to win better pay, shorter hours, and safer conditions, workers had begun to form labor unions in America and Canada. But the companies they worked for often fought hard to keep unions out and to suppress strikes. At times, this led to violent battles between workers and business owners, with the owners often backed up by the police or even the military. In the following years, the idea of Labor Day caught on in America, with official celebrations reaching 30 states. But then came the violent Haymarket Square riot of 1886, which led to the deaths of several policemen and workers in Chicago and the execution of 4 union leaders. After that, many labor and political groups around the world had begun to mark Haymarket Square on May 1st, which became known as International Workers' Day. In 1894, President Grover Cleveland signed the law making Labor Day a federal holiday in America, only days after he had sent 12,000 soldiers to end a violent railroad strike that resulted in the death of several people. The original September date was kept, partly to avoid the more radical associations of May 1st. Canada also created its Labor Day in 1894. But in spite of this new holiday, it would be a long time before the changes that workers wanted became a reality. In 1938, during the Great Depression that left millions without jobs, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed a law calling for an 8-hour workday, a 5-day work week, and an end to child labor, some of the first federal protections for American workers. As America and Canada celebrate Labor Day, most of the two countries' children enjoy a day off from school. But it is important to remember that there was a time that every day was a Labor Day for children in America and Canada. And unfortunately, the same fact remains true for millions of children around the world today.
Thank you, Joan.
Would you like the hymn now, Jim?
Yes, please. Yes, please, Joan.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This hearth, though all the world grow chill, will keep you warm. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though their sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
And now Jim Fuller will tell us about his experience of Labor Day.
So, spirituality and labor. My parents, Marv Fuller and Catherine Nyquist, met at a tiny Antioch college right after World War II. Antioch had been a hotbed of Unitarian and humanist thinking at that time. The stark injustice of the world had been exposed by the war on Nazi racism fought by a segregated US Army. The humanists at Antioch were advocates for justice. They advocated for action, agency, to work for a better world. Hearing about this from my parents was the soundtrack of my upbringing. There is a memorial bench at Lions Park Beach. A plate on the bench is inscribed with the name of Marv Fuller, and below it, it reads in quotes, "What have you done for the good of the world today?" What have you done for the good of the world today? My father would ask as we sat down to have dinner. My brother, my sister, and I would proceed to tell our parents about our day. Now, we were not supposed to give a list of social justice accomplishments for that day, just the who, what, when, where of our day, playing with friends, or what happened at school. But my dad was planting a seed, a germ of thought, what it meant to live a good life, a life with action and agency. And that seed took hold. The labor I have done for 47 years and continue to do now, even in retirement, has been and is a labor of service to this world. I fix things. I fix life's little things, a furnace, an air conditioner, a water heater, or a refrigerator. And each time I get the reward of doing something for the good of the world. Now, I'm not going to be the one who comes up with a vaccine for COVID, and I'm not going to end war or hunger or racism, but I do relieve just a little bit of stress in people's lives just for that little moment. The relief, the joy, the gratitude folks feel when I tell them, problem solved. It's a gift, it's a blessing, with more value for me than money. My life of labor, hard physical labor as a career, a living, and a service to others, is the good I do for a better world, and it's a reward for my soul.
Amen, and thank you, Jim. That was lovely. And now, music.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving mid the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Thank you, Joan. Most of you know I'm a big fan of unions, and am a card holder. Actually, I have a 25-year pin in the Carpenters Union, Local 413 in South Bend. And now Bridget Lorenz will talk to us about her work of homeschooling, or part of her work of homeschooling.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, the train is going by, so I hope it's not too loud. You can hear me over the top of it. My heart always clenches at this time of year because I hate to send my kids back to school. I hate missing my days away from them, but I've always justified sending them to school by being able to have more time at home with my babies, with my younger kids, and for the older ones, having a more diverse point of view, meeting more people, and having more people to love them. But of course, this year is a little different. And if ever I was serious about keeping them home for school, this would be the year to try it, to do it. So we've decided that my youngest three are going to forgo buses and lunch boxes and backpacks and recess bells. And instead of substituting and volunteering in classrooms and libraries, I will be staying home with them, reading, crafting, listening, drawing, figuring, planning, practicing, and probably pleading with them. 3 of my favorite people on the planet. This huge amount of work that this will entail is tempered by following, 3 themes or thoughts. The first one is gratitude. The older 2 are going back to school. They wanted to do band and orchestra in person, and some of them have advanced classes. So I'm picturing that's a 40% reduction in the kid population in my house, so it's going to be easy to just have 3 of them. And we have plenty of room in our house, and Oren's working from home, so there's another adult in the house. My kids are independent readers. They're all hardworking, creative, and curious. I still have the time and energy to be able to commit this to them before they figure out that I don't know anything. So I'm going to focus on our work is meant to be a gift. The second, thought is rest, which I know is the opposite of work, but what if your work can be rejuvenating so that it feels restful? I have a lot of anxiety about teaching my kids, teaching them the right things and doing the whole thing correctly. So a good portion of my preparations have gone towards not panicking and having confidence in myself and trust in my kids that education is not a competition and that learning should be deep and peaceful. Our work is meant to be balanced. Number 3 is joy. And what better goal is there than to have a diligent student? Diligence comes from a Latin word, diligere, meaning to single out, to value something highly, and to take delight in it. I don't imagine that my kids are going to take joy in doing math drills, but I do hope that they will have a deep sense of accomplishment in mastering those skills. And the way for us to live is to enjoy those everyday moments as they pass, because that's where the beauty lies. So our work is meant to be enjoyed. The 4th one is sharing. I mentioned earlier that having a diverse community was one of my justifications, has always been one of my justifications for public school. And coupled with my own feelings of inadequacy, I fully intend to ask for the support of a network of wise and caring people. Although I asked Pastor Jim for some religious ed suggestions, and I ended up giving this talk, so I don't know how that turned out. Anyway, our work is meant to be shared. So my hope from myself and for all of you, as you're going back to work, if you're going back to work at school or wherever your work takes you in the coming months, is to stand on these 4 pillars of gratitude, sharing, rest, and joy. Thanks.
Thank you, Bridget. That was splendid. Very, very good. And I enjoyed your assistant there also. And now, Candace Elders will reflect on being a working mom.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Candace.
Maternity leave was the longest 12 weeks of my life. I remember my first day back to work like it was yesterday. I had on pants that actually buttoned with a pair of power stilettos. I made a giant mug of coffee and lead-footed the gas pedal while I cranked up the volume to the first non-lullaby explicit lyric playlist I could find. It was liberating to have a purpose beyond keeping my needy infant alive. I couldn't wait to spend the day talking to other grown-ups, going out to lunch, and maybe even a happy hour martini. I gave birth to my daughter in 2013 on the brink of a polar vortex winter. Each day home with her felt so long and lonely. I counted the minutes that my husband would come home after work and give me reports of life outside. My big excitement was perusing the aisles of Target for baby crap we didn't need and hoping to run into someone I knew who was on their lunch break or something. That long-waited first day back to work, I actually spent in my office crying from withdrawal and guilt. My husband sent me videos of Chloe on the changing table, giving him a smile, or maybe it was just gas, and the outfit she wore for her first day in daycare. Several months later, we pulled her out of that daycare because our pediatrician said the back of her head was too flat and she might have to wear one of those baby helmet things. This, we deduced, was because she wasn't being picked up and held enough during those long 9-hour days in that stranger's care. Chloe, who is now almost 7, still has a flat head. I notice it every time we go to the beach and she gets her hair wet. I will feel a pang of guilt every time I see her wet head until the day I die. That first year was a total blur. Perpetually sleep deprived, having to arrange meetings around my pumping schedule, looking down at a leaky boob during a board meeting, and then hiding in my office with the door locked, looking at pictures of her on my phone, trying to trick my body into thinking she was with me so I could pump enough milk to feed her the next day. That was the longest, shortest time. And now we're long past potty training and bottle feeding, and now sleeping through the night, heading into first grade and losing baby teeth. I wish I could have that 12 weeks of maternity leave now, because there is nothing I'd rather do than hang out with my clever, kind, and funny kid. I think about all the things I would have done differently if I could go back for a redo on that chapter. Chloe was a surprise baby. I never intended to have kids, and I wonder how different we would be if we'd planned for her and saved enough money to take a year or two off from work. But the penalties on a career for women who take those long breaks can be ruinous. But would it have been worth it? I'd have to post retirement plans a few years, but would Chloe's head be rounder? Would our bond be stronger? I will never know. What I do know is that because I work, my privileged, blue-eyed, blonde-haired only child gets constant, important reminders that she is not always the center of my universe, that other people need me too. Lately, she sees me on Zoom meetings with my staff, giving me the opportunity to redefine bossy as listening carefully, solving problems, and serving others regardless of where they sit on an org chart. Because I work, we chip away at traditional gender roles each time she observes her dad folding laundry and making cookies for the school bake sale. Because I work, I can point out a billboard on the road or a commercial on the radio and tell her, Mommy made that. Because I work, we have extra income for piano lessons in Disney World. I have the peace of mind that I can support her on my own if it ever came down to it. There's an overwhelming amount of data that support both negative and positive outcomes for kids with working moms. I admittedly consume those reports with a deeply biased filter. The only online moms group I participate in anymore is explicitly for those of us who work. Those are my people. I've noticed that when stay-at-home moms and working moms intermingle, there can be a tension. It can be challenging on both sides to battle both jealousy and judgment. Like, what do those moms even do all day? Or why even have kids if you're just gonna hire strangers to raise them? Ultimately, there is no available choice devoid of considerable sacrifice. I know I have it so much easier than so many moms who are patching together multiple minimum wage jobs who are doing it on their own. I'm just so grateful to be on the journey. I'm grateful to live in an era when the choice is ours alone to make. I hope that when the time comes for my daughter to make this choice for herself, we will have figured out as a society how to better support each and every family with policies and resources that build stronger families each generation. Because without a doubt, being Chloe's mom is the best job I could ever hope for, but it's not my only mission.
Thank you. That was marvelous and heartful and tender, Candace. That was beautiful. And now let's have a little Bach. Wow, thank you for that, Candice Onweller. And I don't know who was the person who put the skyscape on the back, but that was a very nice touch. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, Jim and Candace and Bridget. That was very, very beautiful. I don't really need to preach this sermon, so I'll just let it go. No, I got to do it. I get paid for that, so. I think one of the greatest difficulties that modern people face is that so much of the work we do seems soulless and meaningless. I think of packing boxes in a giant Amazon warehouse where one is more of a number and not a person with feelings, thoughts, and real life experiences. It seems like that for many jobs that people have all around for many jobs that people have all around the world. I say it seems like that because I don't think it has to be that way. Our work can have soul, and by soul I mean connection, wonder, dignity, meaning, and spiritual manna. A few weeks ago, I talked about a pet chicken I had when I was a little kid. I had a relationship with that chicken. We had soul. It was that way with the animals, the fields, and even the machinery on our farm. Many of the cows had names. I spent hours in the fields cultivating and weeding sugar beets, soybeans, sunflowers, and pinto beans. I had a relationship with the fields. We had soul. Even our tractors had names. We had an old F-20 farmall that actually started with a crank mounted on the front of the tractor. We called her the Old 20. She was manufactured in 1934. I hated that tractor. If I wasn't careful, the crank would kick back on me when the engine fired. I'm lucky it never broke my arm. We had a relationship. We had soul. One day, my grandfather had taken delivery of a brand new 1964 Buick Skylark. That very same day, he decided to drive it out to the hayfield where I was bucking hay with the Old 20 and forming it into stacks. He decided he would park it out of sight behind a stack some distance from where I was bucking. I did not see him come into the field. I was on my last buck of hay when I saw that there was a stack that looked a little short. So I drove Old 20 across the field and placed the last buck on top of that stack. Reversed the tractor and without looking, backed around the stack to point myself towards home. It was the stack behind which my grandfather had parked his shiny new Buick. Old 20 took out both doors and the front quarter panel on the driver's side. There was a lot of soul that day. A couple months later, I drove the repaired Buick on my very first date ever with a girl. We were both 14. At that time, we could get a driver's license in North Dakota at 14 if you were a farm boy. There was soul that night. So what happened to soul? It seems to be missing from the modern workplace. Is it gone for good, or is there a way to reclaim it? I think there is. I don't think soul has been absent from our work so much as we have absented ourselves from our souls. We no longer have the eyes to see, or as Jesus said, the ears to hear. There's plenty of soul and plenty of nourishing manna. It is my opinion that we do not have eyes to see or ears to hear because of the stories we tell ourselves as individuals and as societies, and that these stories are often seriously dysfunctional. I talked a few weeks ago about the assumptions of scientific materialism, which is currently one of the overarching narratives of Western civilization. Scientific materialism, which is not at all scientific, is the only religion taught in public schools. Most of us are thoroughly indoctrinated. In scientific materialism, the universe consists of unconscious matter, nothing but very small particles hitting one another and clumping up until they accidentally organize themselves into two 14-year-olds stumbling around in my grandfather's 1964 Buick. One of the most important parts of being a UU is the invitation to become a co-creator in one's own life. Choosing one's own metaphor for life based on one's own personal experience and reflection enables us to gather the spiritual manna that exists in plenitude. In my personal metaphor, soul is everywhere. I have come through my own investigations, some of them rather painful, to believe that the universe is alive, intelligent, and conscious, and that this intelligence and consciousness does not reside in some super God-like entity who is in control of the universe, but is within all things, from the tiniest subatomic particle to the greatest galaxy cluster. This is not something I have invented. It is the basis of the Vedanta and many indigenous religions, and is thousands of years old. It is also the opinion held by many philosophers, mystics of all stripes, and the Nobel Prize winner in physics, Max Planck. Putting this all in a smaller container, everything is soul. Your true identity is soul. You are soul. So you don't have to worry about bringing your soul to your workplace. It is already there. And if you happen to be, as I mentioned above, packing boxes in an Amazon warehouse, it is there also. Soul enlivens, vivifies, and gives you and your work holiness. It makes you holy. By now you may be mentally saying something like, just a cotton picking minute here, Jim. What about me? My boss is a lecher with halitosis who enjoys skating on the edge of sexual misconduct. Or I'm actually working in an Amazon warehouse and the work is brutally dehumanizing. Or I work for a subsidiary of a multinational corporation that makes a lot of money selling weapons all around the world. Or I work for a chemical company that annually produces millions of tons of agricultural chemicals that may cause birth defects in infants and may destroy the environment. Where, I ask, is the soul in that? My answer, soul is where it always has been. Working within and from without, both within and without, is important to bring forth sustaining manna. So sometimes soul will engender feelings of contentment and happiness with one's work. Other times it will incite you to confront your boss about abusive behavior, or to simply pick up your things and walk off your job because you can no longer engage in work that promotes violence and death. Our soul may instruct you to become a whistleblower who sits in front of a congressional oversight committee, or compel you to organize an illegal wildcat strike. And why, I ask, are wildcat strikes illegal? Our soul may compel you to, like American workers in the late 19th century, put it on the line and unionize so that the workplace can be a more humane and democratic place, and so that children can have childhoods that do not include working in mines or mills. The thing about soul is that it has an agenda. It has an agenda for you that is uniquely yours. The agenda of soul is becoming. To accomplish becoming, the soul does not always respect convention. If soul respected convention, there would be no buff. You and I would not be assembled on Zoom today. So sometimes soul will take you out to the fields to plow, or put a rifle in your hand and send you off to war. Sometimes soul will require you to sit for your public accountancy exams, or go to Ecuador to build a clinic in a medically underserved village. Sometimes the soul will call you to the barricades and streets where you will encounter tear gas and rubber bullets. And sometimes the soul will lead you to Amazon. The point is, if we want to be really alive, we must stand with soul. A few days ago, our own Gloria Weberg had an auto accident in which she rolled her car, so that when it came to rest, it was positioned driver's side down on the street. The police took quite a bit of time extracting her from her automobile. In that time, a crowd gathered. When the police removed the front windshield and Gloria was able to finally exit the car, the crowd broke into spontaneous applause. Gloria faced the crowd and took a bow. Later, when Gloria was recounting the story to me, she said, "You know, Jim, I may look like a little old lady on the outside, but I'm not a little old lady on the inside." When she said those words to me, an image presented itself in my mind. The image was of a lioness on an African savanna watching over her cubs. Was that a glimpse of Gloria's soul? I like to think so. My brother at age 68 is retiring. He has visions of long days relaxing, of being able to step back from the struggle and just letting the world go by. I informed him that it does not work that way. Soul requires us to use ourselves up in its service. Retired or not, the soul is about becoming, and as long as we have breath, it pulls us, pushes us, entices us, and sometimes throws us into a headlock so that we do not miss 1 minute of our wild and precious lives. It is the soul's habit to throw us into the deepest tides where we strangely have everything we need to swim in the swift, tumultuous currents of life. And now for our final hymn.
One, two, three, four.
Longest for the longest time. Longest for the longest time. I have been at home in quarantine, stopping spread of COVID-19.
We extinguish this flame, but we keep its warmth in our hearts and have faith that its light will continue to guide us on the just path so that we and our world may know peace.